Let's rock. Welcome to Curiosity Public. This is Dutch.
This is Jules.
Dylan.
And this is another one of our podcasts in honor of COVID quarantine 2020.
Yeah. Wow.
Very impromptu.
Tina copying Kevin Smith there.
Oh, whatever, dude. I'm not copying anybody. I make up all original content.
Right.
Hey, so before we get started, we got to keep this relevant to spirits. What are you guys drinking, Jules?
Today, I am going for some Cuban at Militant. Colonel E.H. Taylor, baby.
Oh, that's the barrel.
This is barrel proof. And actually, I think I was with you, Dutch, when we found this, surprisingly.
Was that in Vegas?
I think that was Vegas. Yeah, I want to say Vegas for not too bad a price, I thought, too. Because now it's like crazy, right? I think now it's like going 300 or something, like off-market stuff. So
yeah, I mean, I found
it's barrel proof, so uncut and unfiltered. This one in particular is 128 proof. And,
very nice. We're going for the high proof.
Going through my stockpile, man.
Dylan, what about you, man?
In light of the whole COVID issue, I decided to drink Stag Junior today.
Nice.
Very nice. Which proof? Do you know which one?
I think it's the 127.
Wow. So we all were thinking alike because I'm going with Knob Creek, the one of the new single barrel selects, and this one clocks in at, what is it, 120 something? Yeah, 120.
Wow.
Yeah, this is the one you guys tried actually last time you were up here. 15 years old, 120 proof for like under $60. Like, that's ridiculous, man.
Yeah, we're all like alcoholics, man. We're on the high end tonight.
No, we're fighting off COVID, and I actually think that's a good segue to the article that Dylan sent around earlier. You wanna tell everybody
what we're talking about today?
Yeah, so there was an article that came out on Forbes, and they were arguing that perhaps alcohol can strengthen your immune system. Now, if you remember a couple years back, I mean, I'm old, so going back like a decade, I think, they're talking about how alcohol in some moderation could be protective. So, this kind of article came back. They're talking about COVID-19, and then they're talking about how whiskeys could be helpful. They're looking at the different data, and to be honest, it's kind of a wash, right? Some of these studies are low power, or the level of evidence is not that great, but it's still an interesting concept. The idea that alcohol could be protective. Now, they did note that high dose of alcohol, and they tested on rhesus monkeys. They said if you drink a lot, it's not protective. It's not very good. But if you drink in moderation, then those monkeys that drank middle of the road produced more antibodies than the control group, meaning it had a better immune reaction or response. So that's kind of interesting, right? In light of COVID-19.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe what we're doing, which is at the end of the day, we're relaxing, we're enjoying each other's company, and we all have a libation in our hand. It happens to be high proof, which I think is what you need for disinfection, right? I mean, what do you think? I mean, do you think that this is a valid way of getting through? I mean, there's a long history of using alcohol as medicine.
I got a lot to say, so Jules, why don't you go first?
Because I usually don't have that much to say.
Well, maybe you do. Take your time.
Yeah, no, honestly, I think I don't know. I mean, you could go, it depends on how far back you want to go, going back to like when we were all in tribes.
Like us, the three of us,
going tribal, and there's usually the medicine man, and
wow,
the one with the movie with Sean Connery.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Where we're really looking for those ants that eat sugar to solve all the world's problems.
Oh my god! I thought you were gonna go back to like 1910, right? But no, you're going to like 4,000 BC.
I'm going back to
10,000 BC,
like a big ass bamboo stick through your nose and stuff.
You gotta cut that. That's
wow, inappropriate.
Wow,
this is staying. I'm editing this one.
Wow, that's terrible. That's terrible.
Honestly, it goes back to then and where like you really could, like there might be something to it. I mean, I think everything always in moderation. Just, generally speaking, like I think there is some, finding some balance with that. I think obviously if you do drink too much, and I think that's part of what the study showed, right? Or at least there were some graphs on this with some of the studies where it's like, yeah, if you do too much, yeah, you do start killing off any of the protective agents in your body.
So I've got mixed feelings about this. I feel like you can go either way.
Right. Well,
so a lot of the like you were talking about the studies, and there's actually another study, I think I sent this one around, that was about just all-cause mortality, right? And they find this kind of dip in the curve, and it's right around like the 1 to 2 drinks per day. And they find that actually is a benefit. And then when you get to like the 4, 5, 6, you're eventually kind of going to get back to not having any benefit. So there's that's one way to look at it. But then the other way to look at it, which is the more or the less scientific, kind of just more anecdotal and more for fun, is have you guys ever read the book The Hot Zone?
No.
Is that Robin Cook?
The Hot Zone is a book by Richard Preston. It's about the Ebola almost outbreak that happened in Washington, D.C. with like the chimpanzees. But it kind of traces the whole story of Ebola, and it tells the story of these doctors that were in Africa treating patients. One of these guys cut his finger while he was treating this Ebola patient, got covered in blood, was convinced that he contracted Ebola, which is bloodborne, goes back to his tent, is depressed, drinks a whole bottle of scotch, and he never contracts the disease. So there's this kind of like completely non-scientific, you drink enough ethanol, and you get your blood alcohol content to a certain level, you're going to kill anything bloodborne. Now, I don't know. I don't think COVID's bloodborne necessarily, but I like to believe that if I'm starting to feel sick and I drink plenty of ethanol, it kills whatever's ailing me.
So
with some alcohol while you're sucking up like someone coughing in your face.
Well, let's be very clear here. This is not scientific, or sorry, this is not medical advice. These are the
I blame. Idiots. Hey, I blame Jules on this one. He went way back, and then Dutch has to bring it back to some zoo in Washington
with the one data point, anecdotal research.
Yeah. Well, actually, I've got a second data point, which is also anecdotal. But recently,
Power of one.
My wife got sick. I was like, all right, I know I'm going to get this, but like the day I was starting to just feel a little bit of like, oh, maybe I got a scratchy throat, I just drank a ton of bourbon until I like passed out. And I did get sick, but I didn't get as sick as she had been. So I'm going to say that's the bourbon working its healing magic.
The variables in that story is infinite, but hey, whatever.
Well, anyway, so back to the world of reality. There were rumors of this going around on the internet when the COVID outbreak was just starting. And people were saying, oh, yeah, it kind of, the virus lodges in your throat before going to your lungs. And if you drink high enough proof ethanol, you're going to kill it. And it actually made its way to Iran, where there is quite a big outbreak, actually. And we don't know how high the numbers are there. But people there, I mean, it's hard to get alcohol. So people didn't really know what to do, but they were hearing this on the internet, and they went and bought rubbing alcohol, which is not ethanol.
I think it's methanol, right?
Yeah, it was methanol and like isopropyl. I mean, and they were drinking it and getting severely sick from that.
Yeah.
No, they died. Yeah,
there were some people that died, right?
I mean, I want to go back to the Forbes article. The idea that alcohol or spirits it had medicinal value goes back quite a bit. As Jules said, it goes back to the caveman days, I suppose. But, I would say kind of in the modern times, if you guys remember I Love Lucy, right? Vitamita Vegemin.
That's modern time.
Yeah, Vitamita Vegemin, right? Had like tons of alcohol and hilarity ensued. But that was kind of a reflective of what was going on. You had these snake oil salesmen who are basically selling alcohol as a cure-all. And I always look at these studies and I say, is this really true? It's hard to dive into the data. It's always been, I think in the last, 3 decades, they used to say, oh, drinking alcohol in moderation, there may be some evidence that it could be protective, but who knows? But I do want to bring up a study though. So there was another article about how a researcher is using vodka. Dr. Christina Simonian, she is looking at spasmodic dysphonia, which is a form of dystonia. It causes this involuntary contraction of the vocal cords, and she's using vodka to treat it.
That is interesting. I mean, and it's almost kind of weird that the only thing that we know for sure that it does is that if it's high enough proof, it'll kill germs topically, right? Like if you rub your hands with 60 proof or 60% plus ethanol, you're going to kill pretty much anything, right?
Yeah, and then speaking of that, I think the Tito handmade vodka was being purchased like crazy. They were using it as a hand sanitizer because you can't buy hand sanitizer. And then they had to come out and say, Tito, I think, came out and said, per CDC, the hand sanitizer has to be at least 60% alcohol.
Right.
It does need to be at a high proof to kill bacteria and, I guess, viruses on the surface. Can we argue that if you drink, say, Stag Junior or my favorite, George T. Stag, does it start killing all of the viruses?
If the virus, like that completely unscientific anecdote that it lodges in your throat first before getting into your lungs, if it really does that and you're drinking high proof alcohol, I mean, you kill it. It wouldn't go down your airway, right? But it's going to be in close enough proximity, maybe. I'm going to go with that theory, guys.
All right. So now we're hearing whiskey, right? Whiskey helping with possibly COVID. We heard drinking wine could be protective, cardiovascular protection. I think it was like a couple decades ago. So I want to know, what other wives' tale are there? I mean, Dutch gave us his own anecdote of drink till you pass out to fight against a upper respiratory infection. But what are some of the other wives' tale with regards to alcohol?
Well, I mean, there's a long history with like Amaros, and they started out as medicinal things. People would basically soak these herbs in alcohol and think that they would extract all of the healing benefits of them. And they've been given for a long time as like digestive healers, but not necessarily to fight off infection. The one that would come to mind would be like mead using honey. I think that's got some history of being somewhat medicinal. I don't know, Jules.
One that immediately comes to mind for me is like, again, my recent trip from the Middle Kingdom, Three Penis wine, and what the people, the good folk up there told me was, it actually helps improve like your libido and life force while also killing toxins in your body.
Wait, is this the triple penis wine?
Yeah, the Three Penis wine. Well, I bought like several things, like the Three Penis wine, and then also the what was the other one?
It was a snake one, the one that I almost vomited.
Snake one.
Yeah, terrible.
There is also the whole thing about like the polyphenols that are in whiskey, and there's just not a lot of science done on it. But I mean, I know that there's some people that have kind of poked around at this topic. I'm trying to find one of the articles I read a while back about like the whiskey polyphenols and potential health effects of them. But there's just not a lot of good evidence. There's a few papers here and there, but.
Okay. So since you brought up content, I was doing some research. I think there was a article by Hugh et al. In 2010 in a journal called Regulation. They were looking at vodka. Actual contents of vodka was. It's interesting because they found trace compounds of esters, all right. Aldehydes, yeah. Higher alcohols, okay. Methanol, not as good. Acetates, acetic acid, and fusel oil.
Oh,
Jeez.
So there's a lot of stuff in there. I guess it's trace amount, but I'm sure that's not really contributing to the antiviral, antibacterial effect. But there's stuff in there. There's other stuff in there. So.
And like things that are considered antioxidants even in some forms of whiskey.
Right. Speaking of this article, I read another article on Fox News that a man, he says, like self-diagnosed, I guess, he had coronavirus, and then he was cured.
Hallelujah.
Yeah. So apparently
that kind of cured?
He apparently overcame the illness with hot whiskey and honey. He kind of ripped me off. I drink a lot of the
honey probably did the thing.
hot bourbon, but this guy named Connor Reed, 25 years old, and he was in Wuhan, China. He was drinking honey and hot whiskey. So
wow.
Yeah, so he didn't.
Well, I mean, there's also like at least one of the ones. I don't know if it's a wives' tale thing, but like gin has always been known to like improve digestion.
Right.
Because they say like just the bitter herbs that go into it like help like your digestive.
And that's the theory with all the bitters.
Stomach acid and right, like for all the bitters and stuff. But I mean, I remember hearing that specifically like with gin I guess there's something to that because a lot of people take it, so.
Well, yeah, I just found that journal article I was talking about. So the title of the article is "The Effect of Whiskey and Wine Consumption on Total Polyphenol Content and Antioxidant Capacity of Plasma from Healthy Volunteers." So they fed these people either wine, whiskey, or what they called new make whiskey, which I think is like White Dog, so non-aged ethanol. And they drew blood and they used some measure of total polyphenols, and they actually found that there's a higher spike in the people that were given whiskey. Like there's an initial spike from the people that have wine, and then like as time goes on, after like an hour, the total level in the blood is actually higher from whiskey. So all those people that say drinking wine is good for you just tell them, hey, look, there's scientific evidence that you get more of these polyphenols in your system in an hour from whiskey. So
I think we can go on and on about the wives' tale, right? But
That's a scientific article, man. That's not a wives' tale.
I mean, I go back to the Vitamita Vegemin.
You just go back to I Love Lucy.
Look, I am a fan. I am a fan. So,
yeah, how true of a fan are you? What was Lucy's favorite drink?
what does she drink? Well, she's not. I don't think she drank on the show. She's not allowed to. They couldn't even say that they were pregnant. They had to use the term infanticipating, I think, and they still slept in separate beds. So I don't think they were downing like vodka.
Know.
Yeah, I think they were vodka.
I thought you were a diehard Lucy fan, man.
What did she drink?
Actually, I don't know either. But.
Yeah, there you go. See,
but I do know that one of her favorite. I don't know what she drank regularly. Let me put it that way. But I know one of her favorite cocktails involved bourbon. So I forgot what exactly though.
That's
I think they even
anticlimactic.
named it after her, like the Zany Lucy.
Just riveting.
I wanted to talk about these advertisement posters they used to have, right? A lot of them had doctors on the cover. They were like Old Hickory. They said Guinness is good for you. Although that's beer.
Yeah, but so did cigarette ads back in the day, man.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's integrated into culture that perhaps alcohol can be beneficial. And during times like these, I think people are desperate. They say there's no cure. Well, some people drink hot scotch and honey. Other people drink Stag Junior, highest proof you got, and some people drink wine. So
wine is fine, man. Wine is fine, but whiskey's quicker. We can kind of sum this up pretty easily, I think. There's all these old wives' tales. There's all this speculation, but at the end of the day, getting together with people when you're under quarantine over the internet and sharing a drink, if nothing else, is a good stress reliever and kind of helps you get over the isolation issues that you might face, right?
Cure for the soul. I think that's interesting.
That's very
I don't
true.
know what the hell you guys are both talking about. All I need is some pink lemonade as my nightcap. I don't need to be talking to you guys over video conference call, whatever. Just lock me up in my room. I'm good to go.
So why do we have Jules on this podcast?
As long as I have access to Pornhub, I'm good to go.
Oh my
God. Wow.
Hey, let's quarantine for 3 more months. I'm good.
Hey, whatever floats your boat, I guess.
Wow, well, you know what, Jules? Why don't you take us out? But give the right URL link, not the one you're browsing right now.
Hey, well, actually, I don't know. Well, there's another episode of Curiosity Public Podcast. If this comes out before our YouTube channel, just know our YouTube channel is in the works. Once we can all get back together in the studio.
And we will be putting these podcasts up on our.
Oh, they're pretty fun,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Stay
all right.
tuned.
Well, until next time, everybody, stay curious.